Billionaire refused to shake hands, but 5 minutes later, a black man surprisingly gained 4 Bs in a post-racial America. Marcus Williams stood at the edge of the room, the glimmer of chandeliers reflecting off his dark skin, mirroring the clash of hope and despair within him. The Silicon Valley elite mingled with champagne glasses and superficial smiles, contrasting starkly with his unrefined attire, an affordable suit that felt like a second skin, yet not particularly suited for the occasion. He clasped his hands tightly, feeling the sweat collect in his palms as he recalled his father's dreams for him, the American dream he had been chasing since childhood. All of it had led him here, to this moment. And yet, doubt wrapped around him like a vice. Just moments ago, Nathan Reed, a towering figure in tech, glided through the crowd, dismissing the world around him. When Marcus finally summoned the courage to approach, his heart raced. But then the billionaire's icy refusal to shake his hand landed like a stone in Marcus's gut, a rejection that shouted racial prejudices louder than any word. He tried not to falter, but the smirks and rolled eyes followed him, punctuating the air with resentment. "What are you doing here?" was the message conveyed without saying a word. It was a sting that struck deep, igniting an ember of steel within him. Who was he to dream big when the world had seen him only as a statistic? Behind the glimmer of this high-profile event, his mind raced. He questioned his worth, laboring under the burden of a battle he fought daily, rising above the expectations that dripped like tar from society's biases. The fear of failure weighed heavily on him. Would he always remain in the shadow of those who held power? He tightened his jaw and inhaled deeply, recalling the late nights he had spent coding, fueled by coffee and sheer determination, knowing his children's futures depended on his creativity and innovation. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. With every step he took towards his pitch, he felt the urgency build within him. The investors settled into their seats, looking at him with skepticism. Hadn't he seen this look before? The attitude scrawled with "not good enough." His heart raced. He began telling his story, the sacrifices, the long hours, the desire to elevate his children into a world untouched by the chains of prejudice. For a brief moment he caught glimmers of understanding in some eyes. Could they see him? But then the murmurs of doubt crackled through the atmosphere, and he sensed it. Am I a fool for believing they would see the brilliance through my skin? The dark voice of Nathan's rejection echoed in his mind, taunting him. He could feel them, the whispers of his past clawing at his resolve. Just as he began to describe the essence of his project, an influential investor stood up, eyes bright with sudden interest, offering him an astonishing $4 billion for control of the very idea these elites had failed to see. Excitement bubbled up, yet the shadows returned, reminding him of Nathan's cold dismissal. This wasn't simply about the money, it was a tumultuous reminder of the journey ahead. Would they see him as an innovator, or merely a trophy to validate their own charity? The walls of this luxurious space began to close in on him. He held both triumph and anguish in his hands, a juxtaposition of success intertwined with the relentless weight of significance. As he stood at the precipice of an unfathomable opportunity, the echoes of doubt returned clearer than ever. How would he navigate this new chapter? Would success liberate him from the chains of prejudice, or deepen those very scars? In that moment, the world outside the surround of privilege felt painfully distant. Marcus knew he stood on a pivotal edge, wondering not just about his victory, but how he might illuminate the path for others who remained hushed. As the tension filled the air, an unshakable uncertainty lingered. Was this a beginning, or an ominous reminder of the uphill battle yet to come? A new chapter of his life awaited Marcus, but with it came the heavy realization that wealth wouldn't inherently erase the scars of rejection. As the words of the investor hung in the air, he felt both hope and an overwhelming sense of responsibility looming over him. The stakes had risen, and he understood that his ascent into the upper echelons of wealth didn't just belong to him alone. It belonged to everyone who shared similar experiences of overcoming systemic barriers. His thoughts spiraled. What would it mean to manage such a colossal sum? Would he be received as a respected entrepreneur or seen as a passing curiosity? Would he break the mold or become another statistic, an overprivileged token at the expense of genuine progress? The wealth he had suddenly acquired became a burden, transforming his initial thrill into anxiety. He was no stranger to adversity. He'd spent years honing his skills and his intellect, but this was another level entirely, where the risks were amplified and the scrutiny magnified. How he behaved now would echo throughout his entire journey, defining not just his character but the path for others like him. Each decision mattered more than ever. He couldn't afford a misstep. As the pitch meeting concluded, the energy in the room shifted. Investors exchanged glances, murmurs rippling through the crowd. A mix of envy and curiosity reflected back at him. Marcus felt their eyes dissecting him, searching for anything that could validate their doubts. Was this man truly worthy of the investment, or would he crumble under the pressure? Taking a deep breath, he accepted the investor's offer, feeling the weight of the moment settle in the pit of his stomach. Instinctively, he knew that to truly succeed, he would have to reinforce his foundations, sharpen his skills, and build a structure of support around him. Yet with the promise of power came a fear of isolation, an unsettling thought that wealth could carve walls around him rather than bridges. In this new reality, he pondered, where would his loyalty lie? Would he prioritize the promises made during negotiations, or forge a path that extended beyond mere profit margins? Would he steer his enterprise toward uplifting communities, or allow the industry's cutthroat culture to seep into his consciousness? Marcus stepped outside, letting the brisk air ground him. He watched the world continue in its hustle, oblivious to the battles waged in corners and shadows. The cacophony of life reminded him that he had a duty now, to infuse his narrative into the technology sector, to become a voice for those shadows often overlooked. He thought of his father, the sacrifices made, and how those dreams resonated within him, shifting from personal ambition to collective aspirations. The desire to unlock not just his fate, but that of countless others, became his guiding light. He envisioned partnerships, investments in education, and innovative solutions targeting marginalized communities. But would corporate America welcome his vision, or would they force him into their narrow definitions of success? The thought hovered invitingly, daring him to engage with change without fear of losing himself in the process. As Marcus settled into reflection, he felt a familiar pang of doubt again, reminding him that transcending prejudice would be an ongoing journey, not a one-time victory. It called upon him to be both bold and strategic, leveraging the platform he was now afforded to challenge the status quo. Suddenly, he received a notification on his phone, a request for a meeting with Nathan Reed. The irony hung heavy in the moment. Was this his chance to confront the demon of his past, or was it merely a setup designed to suffocate his newly budding ambition? Marcus took another deep breath, reevaluating the landscape ahead. Would he confront disdain, or discover an unexpected ally who could help him transcend the barriers? Either way, he realized, his journey was just beginning, and it was crucial he prepared for whatever was coming next. As Marcus navigated the flood of emotions that accompanied the meeting request from Nathan Reed, he felt a strange surge of determination mixed with dread. The ghost of their history loomed large, forcing him to confront an unspoken rivalry that had haunted him since his early days in entrepreneurship. Nathan, once the golden child of their shared network, had always worn success like a badge of honor, commanding respect through sheer profile rather than merit. Now, he possessed the kind of influence that could either assist in Marcus's ascent or rain down contempt upon him. His instincts warned him. This was not a simple rendezvous. There were deeper currents at play, and he would need to tread carefully through a minefield disguised as a conversation. Marcus prepared meticulously for the interaction, amplifying his skills while tempering his doubts. He brainstormed talking points, covered every angle, and even enlisted a few voices from his budding network for insight. The investments he envisioned demanded he not only hold his ground, but also project confidence despite his inner turmoil. He practiced. It was more than just rehearsing words. It was about embodying the persona he aspired to be. Each reflection in the mirror showed him a ghost of possibility, a man who could command respect, who could change narratives, who could redefine societal expectations. On the day of the meeting, Marcus arrived early, pacing outside the sleek glass building that housed Nathan's office. The surroundings felt imposing, a stark reminder of how far he'd come, but also of the forces still aligned against him. As he entered the lobby, the fluorescent lights seemed brighter, the space more suffocating. He took steadying breaths, anchoring himself in the moment. He would not allow fear to dictate his actions. When Nathan walked in, he cut a commanding figure, but age had begun to temper the edge of his charisma. Yet the arrogance remained, a snake coiling, ready to strike. They exchanged pleasantries, feigned warmth twisting beneath the surface. Marcus barely recognized the man who had once scoffed at him during their startup days, but he recognized the subtle shift in Nathan's demeanor. This was a man who could smell vulnerability. The first few moments of dialogue were every bit choreographed. They discussed trends in technology, market viability, and the idiocy of the current competition. As they conversed, Marcus noted the flashes of condescension and dismissiveness in Nathan's tone, each word frosted with disdain that threatened to slice through the pleasantries. Still, Marcus did not waver. He leaned into his plans, positioning them as pioneering rather than niche. He revealed insights into underrepresented markets, weaving his personal narrative into a broader economic context, hoping to disarm Nathan's dismissiveness with undeniable data. But the pressure was building in the room, transforming tension into palpable electricity. Marcus felt as if every second stretched, eerily quiet yet chaotic. His next move could flip the entire script. As Nathan scoffed at a revolutionary proposal Marcus outlined, a ripple of frustration coursed through him. He decided to confront it head-on instead of yielding to irritation. With all due respect, Nathan, stifling innovation keeps us shackled to the past. We have the opportunity to redefine what success looks like in our industry. Wouldn't you want to be part of a narrative that transcends mere profitability? The mention of success sparked something in Nathan, a flare of interest mixed with defensiveness. The glimmer of challenge ignited in Marcus's chest. This was the moment he could either crumble or fracture the foundations of their long-standing dynamic. But Nathan's response was a tight smile, matched with a flicker of contempt, and it sent a chill through Marcus. You're ambitious, I'll give you that. But ambition without thorough strategizing is just recklessness, don't you think? The words didn't sit right. This was a man who had pulled strings in his favor, a gatekeeper threatening to slam the door if Marcus got too close. And yet, Marcus's determination ignited a fire. He wouldn't let this opportunity evaporate into doubt or fear. As the meeting stretched on, Each exchange felt like a duel, played beneath the suffocating weight of corporate decorum. What Nathan didn't know was that Marcus was no longer just the kid from the previous years battling for recognition. He was now a calculated architect of his own ambitions. Then, just as the conversation crested into another potentially damning critique, Marcus's phone buzzed violently in his pocket, an incoming notification that threatened to shake the very ground he stood on. It pulled him away from the labyrinth of conversation. Was this just the beginning of a terrifying confrontation, or could it be the very breakthrough he desperately needed? The moment unfurled like a tense bowstring, ready to snap. With one unexpected twist, Marcus felt his destiny lingering tantalizingly close, whispering promises of opportunities that could either cement his vision or shatter it completely. Marcus felt his heart race as he glanced at his phone. The screen illuminated a single message. "We need to talk. It can't wait." The words hovered in the air, clamoring for his attention away from Nathan, who was speaking again, albeit flowingly as if their prior exchange hadn't happened. He forced himself to focus, knowing distraction was the enemy right now. Nathan leaned back in his chair, hands steepled, a smirk dancing on his lips. "You see, Marcus, your naivete is charming, but emotions like ambition can lead you astray without the proper foundations. It's not as simple as shaking things up. You need a robust structure in place." The condescension tasted bitter in Marcus's mouth, those very words used to silence him. He recalled every moment he had spent reaffirming Nathan's authority in their past interactions, always comfortable in the shadow of his supposed superiority. Today, however, he was no longer the eager acolyte. Resentment boiled beneath his calm surface, a reminder that his worth didn't hinge on Nathan's opinions, or anyone else's for that matter. He responded carefully, "And in what structure do you fit me, Nathan? One built on deference. I came here with insights that matter, insights that can shift markets. Perhaps it's time we look beyond the structure you've crafted, one that serves only to maintain the status quo." Marcus felt a shift. The tension was electric. He could see the gears turning in Nathan's mind, awareness sparking behind the facade of disdain. Nathan couldn't deny that Marcus had something of value, even if his arrogance made him reluctant to admit it. "Is that your angle?" Nathan replied, amusement playing in his voice. "Selling disruption, how typical, and who do you think you'll attract? The same marginalized groups you keep pointing at to justify your ideas. Will they invest in what they cannot understand? You're at risk of premature boldness." The words hit at a truth that Marcus could not ignore. It was the familiar punch to the gut that had kept him cautious for years, but doubt was a luxury he could no longer afford. We're entering a phase where traditional barriers are breaking down. The consumer demands innovation and, more specifically, authentic representation. My networks. Before he could finish, Nathan cut him off. Networks. Everyone talks about networks as if they're some magical key. But you must remember, influence is currency, and it's concentrated where you least expect it. Marcus tapped his finger lightly on the table, arranging his next words like pieces on a chessboard. He straightened up, allowing vulnerability to give way to a steely determination. That may be true, but influence can also be redistributed. My networks can reach those corners people often ignore, and it's high time someone shifted the narrative to include them. I refuse to buy into the idea that I'm bound by the old ways." He paused, an undercurrent of fear whispering in his mind. What if rejecting the old path meant dismantling everything he believed in, including who he was? Nathan's expression soured further, masking any hint of intrigue with irritation. "You think you can change the conversation by merely insisting on it. You're underestimating the efforts it takes to be a serious contender. It goes beyond aspiration." Under the rigorous eyes of Nathan, doubt tugged at Marcus, but then he remembered every late night, every sacrifice he had made to get here. He wasn't just some upstart. He was building a legacy that would matter far beyond the current moment. I know that it's precisely that kind of thinking that limits our progress. True leaders have always faced skepticism. Just as Nathan was about to retort, the buzzing from Marcus's phone sprang to life again, pulling at his attention like a siren call. His heart quickened. He instinctively reached for his phone, the anticipation bubbling in him like champagne. What awaited him in that message? Was it a sign of the very thing that could change the course of his dreams? He glanced at the screen, half tempted to act on the urgency winking back at him. Nathan noticed an eyebrow quirked at Marcus's sudden preoccupation. An opportunity shimmered at the edge of realization. A moment suspended, frail and potent. How would he turn it to his advantage? Nathan's gaze narrowed, suspicion coiling in the back of his mind. It might have been a blink in time, but for Marcus it felt like the crossroads of everything he hoped to become. With the tension mounting in the air, Marcus made a decision. He would not only confront the past, he would reshape it. Would the incoming message be the catalyst for that shift, or would it spiral into another setback? The stakes were higher than ever. He could feel destiny poised on a knife's edge, ready for him to take the leap. Was he now prepared to defy the odds, not just against Nathan, but against the world that had so long underestimated him? The answer lay just beyond the screen, inviting and terrifying all at once. Marcus's pulse quickened as he opened the message with trembling fingers. The words jumped off the screen, a mixture of fear and excitement flooding his senses. "You have an opportunity. Meet me in an hour." He recognized the name attached. Jasmine Lane, a renowned investor known for her sharp intuition and keen sense for unlocking potential in unconventional ideas. This was not just an ordinary opportunity, it could redefine everything. His mind raced as he wrestled with Nathan's endless skepticism, the old shadows of insecurity creeping in. Yet something fierce ignited within him. He had vocalized his vision earlier. Now he needed to actualize it. Marcus took a moment to steady his breath, channeling the familiar warmth of determination pooling in his gut. He refused to retreat into self-doubt. If he truly wanted to disrupt the status quo, he would need to embrace this chance fully, not just for himself, but also for the voices he aimed to uplift. The meeting with Jasmine could act as the assertive first step on his quest. "Excuse me, Nathan," Marcus interrupted, attempting to mask his urgency with calm assurance. "I have something important to attend to." Nathan's face twisted in annoyed disbelief. "You're running off mid-discussion? Do you even know what you're leaving behind?" Marcus leaned forward, channeling the steel in his core. "I'm leaving behind the fear of mediocrity. I consider it an obstacle, and I've finally chosen to leap over it." The corners of Nathan's mouth tightened, a flash of anger crossing his features. For a brief moment Marcus thought he might backtrack, but the push of urgency in his veins drowned out Nathan's looming judgment. He stood up resolutely, determined to leave behind his history of concessions. As he hurried down the hall, thoughts of Jasmine's potential influence washed over him. How could her validation lend weight to his voices? He envisioned her ability to elevate his ideas, transforming them from dreams into actionable plans. The prospect of partnering with someone of her caliber electrified him. After a tense subway ride, punctuated by self-reflective anxiety, he stepped into the trendy cafe where they were to meet. The buzzing atmosphere contrasted with the stillness in his heart. He scanned the room, his gaze falling on Jasmine, exuding confidence as she surveyed the landscape of entrepreneurs and thinkers around her. With a deep breath, Marcus approached her table. "Miss Lane?" She looked up, her eyes locking onto his with an intensity that felt both intimidating and invigorating. "You're Marcus Austin." "Yes," he replied, inwardly vacillating between excitement and apprehension. This was when the conversation would either propel him into the stratosphere or dissolve into yet another moment of failure. View my work. It has always been about the underrepresented, she stated plainly, her voice steady, a combination of challenge and invitation layered within. What do you have to show me? Marcus swallowed hard, adrenaline coursing through him. I have a vision, a strategy that centers not just on profit but on representation. Markets are failing to acknowledge valuable voices. Prove it. Her short command clipped the air between them. This was the moment. Marcus knew he had only one chance to articulate his ideas, to fabricate a narrative that would capture her attention and convince her of their worth. He launched into his proposal, outlining the strategy he had been honing for months, the way cultural narratives interwoven in the market could lead to unparalleled growth. He spoke with fervor, layering his words with conviction buoyed up by his networks and experiences. As he spoke, the memory of Nathan's disparaging words faded, replaced by newfound clarity. Here, facing Jasmine, he felt the weight of possibility more than ever before. This could be his defining moment, not just to rise above Nathan, but to reconcile the dissonance between ambition and authenticity in one sweeping gesture. Just as he neared the conclusion of his pitch, Marcus noticed Jasmine leaning forward, her brows knit in concentration as she considered his thoughts. Her reaction was a silent enigma, leaving him teetering precariously on the edge of hope and doubt. Then she interrupted him with a single question poised to dissect his resolve. What are you willing to sacrifice to make this vision a reality? Marcus hesitated for a split second, knowing her query is more than a performance test. It was a mirror reflecting everything he was willing to traverse. Was he ready to challenge the foundations of his life for the sake of this dream? The time had come to face his true ambitions, but at what cost? The room felt suffocating as he pondered his next words, with fate dangling precariously in the balance. The question hung in the air like a charged current, igniting a storm inside Marcus's mind. He had anticipated some form of challenge, but this was raw, personal. The gravity of Jasmine's inquiry forced him to confront the reality he had long avoided. What was he truly willing to surrender for his vision? His mind flickered through potential sacrifices, the comfort of his current job, the safety net of a regular paycheck, perhaps even relationships that had defined his past. Each thought clamored for his attention, urging him to retract or hesitate, but he quickly silenced them. If he faltered now, he risked not just disappointing himself, but everyone who had come to believe in his ideals. In that moment, clarity cut through the noise. He knew he was grappling with more than just business ambition. He was standing at the intersection of purpose and legacy. He needed to articulate that. I'm willing to risk my stability, Marcus replied, each word laced with newfound resolve. I'm ready to challenge the conventional patterns that stifle innovation. If that means stepping away from financial security to pursue a cause that amplifies marginalized voices, then so be it. Jasmine's expression shifted, the flicker of interest igniting in her eyes. It was subtle but significant. The brevity of her nod indicated she was weighing his every word like precious cargo. With each syllable, Marcus could feel the transformative power of vulnerability drawing closer. Your ambition resonates, Jasmine replied, leaning back slightly yet maintaining her piercing gaze. But ambition alone isn't enough. It's about execution, and more importantly, about resilience. Tell me, Marcus, what happens when you face adversity? The question was a sharp reminder of his recent past. Nathan's dismissive remarks echoed in his head, reminding him of self-doubt and the still lingering fears of failure. However, rather than recoiling, he leaned into the discomfort, recalling previous failures and how they had fortuitously forged his path. I've faced rejection before, he confessed, pausing to add weight to his words. "But every setback has pushed me to refine my vision and sharpen my resolve. I've learned that real currency lies in understanding my audience, their struggles, and ultimately my own motivations." "Interesting," Jasmine replied, a slight smile breaking her resolute demeanor. "Resilience is commendable, but let's talk impact. You're suggesting the empowerment of voices. How will you measure that?" Marcus took a breath, tapping into the depth of his research and passion for the project. "Impact should not just be seen, but felt. I'm envisioning collaboration with underrepresented communities where we can weave their stories into a fabric of success and innovation. Metrics won't solely be financial, they'll encompass socio-economic shifts, increased visibility, and authentic engagement." Jasmine remained silent, the gears turning in her mind. Each idea Marcus presented felt like small victories against Nathan's skepticism. He began to visualize how this meeting could materialize into something greater, a partnership forged from mutual belief and ambition. Their conversation continued, weaving through strategy and potential pitfalls, but as they spoke, something vital clicked inside Marcus. He was not merely aiming for approval, he was on the brink of potentially transformational collaboration. As the meeting waned, energy sparked between them, a budding synergy that hinted at a shared vision. But as he rose to leave, a lingering unease gnawed at him. "Do you actually believe all that?" Jasmine asked suddenly, her expression turning questioning. "You talk about sacrifice and empowerment, but where's your proof?" He froze, her challenge piercing through the hopeful narrative he'd crafted. Was he merely rambling about dreams? He realized his ambitions depended on more than just words. He needed a plan to back them. "I need to back this up," he admitted, his voice steady with newfound clarity. "I'll show you, tomorrow." Jasmine raised an eyebrow, curiosity mingling with skepticism. "How?" "Trust me," he said, determination seeping into his tone. "I'll outline a roadmap that delineates every step, no empty promises, just measurable goals." As he walked away, a potent cocktail of emotions surged through him, excitement, anxiety, and the intoxicating scent of newfound possibility. Marcus knew this was only the beginning. What awaited him was uncharted territory, demanding not just a fight for acceptance, but a quest for proof that echoed beyond aspiration. As he stepped into the street, the light began to dim, but his resolve burned bright. He needed time. Time to reflect on the depths of his commitment, time to assemble a strategy that would validate his assertions before Jasmine and the wider world. Yet one gripping question consumed him. Was he prepared to risk everything for a potential that now stood tantalizingly within reach? Or would he allow fear to stifle his aspirations yet again? Tomorrow loomed like a silent promise. Its arrival brought not just hope, but an urgency that sent his pulse racing anew. What decision would he make when the sun rose again? The sunlight crept into Marcus's apartment the next morning, illuminating the chaos of scattered notes and sketches sprawling across his dining table. It mirrored the frenzy in his mind. He was acutely aware that Jasmine would expect more than lip service today. She craved structure and depth. He flicked through his hastily completed research, an awkward patchwork of ideas and shrewd observations, fragments that now needed to coalesce into a cohesive strategy. As he brewed coffee, his mind interrogated itself relentlessly. How could he materialize his ambitions into actionable steps? How could he synthesize the vision he held so closely with tangible proof that would resonate both with Jasmine and with the communities he aimed to uplift? Anxiety and the thrill of potential collided, creating a tumultuous energy that coursed through him. He pulled a blank sheet of paper closer, letting the pen hover momentarily above it. Outlining his plan became a form of meditation, a canvas upon which he would paint his aspirations. What emerged was structured yet fluid, a roadmap that danced with metrics, timelines, and engagement strategies. each word built upon the last, transforming abstract ideas into concrete actions. "Focus," he whispered to himself, the pen gliding across the page as he delineated steps toward partnership with the community leaders he intended to approach. He envisioned workshops, brainstorming sessions, collaborative storytelling, outreach methods that encouraged not just participation, but genuine investment from the communities. With each stroke of the pen, the dream immortalized on paper morphed into a formidable blueprint. Hours passed like mere minutes, the rush of determination fueling his creativity. Ideas that had previously felt ethereal now anchored beneath the weight of reality. By the time he stood back to survey his work, Marcus felt a rush of adrenaline surge through him. This was more than just a plan. It was a manifesto, a declaration of intent that contained the heartbeat of what he stood for. But as he prepared to leave, doubt reared its head again. What if Jasmine found the plan lacking? What if, despite the meticulous nature of his strategy, it eventually faltered under scrutiny? The ghosts of past failures began to swirl through his thoughts, taunting him with the possibility of disappointment. He caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror, imperfect, yet resolute. He needed to reject those insecurities. They had no place in the life he was choosing. "Embrace it," he murmured through clenched teeth, locking his resolve behind an assertive smile. He didn't just want to prove himself to Jasmine, he yearned to prove it to himself, to silence those lingering doubts that had once dictated his path. The meeting came swiftly upon him, the familiar space of Jasmine's office juxtaposed with the gravity of what he intended to present. Marcus paced internally, heart racing as he adjusted the presentation folder under his arm. Would his authenticity shine through? Would his confidence inspire her belief in this venture? He stepped into the office, steadying his breath as he caught Jasmine's eyes. There was something electric about the moment, a charged atmosphere where ambition and opportunity collided. The hour unfolded like an intricate dance, with engaging dialogue and provocative questions. Marcus laid out his framework clearly, the roadmap he had crafted becoming a lifeline. Jasmine listened, nodding thoughtfully as he detailed the community engagement strategies, measurement systems, and potential outcomes. For the first time, he felt free to expand beyond just numbers. He infused stories, real stories he had encountered and researched. They breathed life into his plan, illuminating the voices he sought to uplift. "Impressive," she said, her expression shifting as she processed the finer points of his strategy. A flicker of respect ignited in her eyes, compelling Marcus to lean deeper into his narrative. Perhaps today would mark a turning point after all. Just as he began to feel warmth in their discourse, she threw a curveball. "And what if they resist? What if they aren't ready?" The question struck him hard, momentarily halting his rhythm. It was a challenge he had anticipated, yet hoped to avoid. "Then I have to reach deeper, to find the common ground, to advocate relentlessly," he replied, confidence surging. "This isn't just a project for me. This is a commitment." Would that commitment be enough? The stakes rose palpably in the air as assertiveness mixed with fear and resolve. Marcus's mind grappled with the truth that every venture into uncharted territory demanded sacrifices and resilience beyond just the strategic. With her thoughtful silence punctuating the moment, he sensed he had ventured into a defining reason to challenge his own boundaries. The atmosphere thick with tension, every heartbeat resonated against the weight of uncertainty. "Now what kind of impact will you truly make, Marcus?" she probed, her eyebrow arched again. A different kind of nervousness took root. This was a test of everything he intended to be. "The kind that ensures no voice is left unheard," he replied, meeting her gaze with an unwavering fire. Yet pressing beneath the haze of anticipation lay a deeper dread. What if proving his purpose meant confronting not just external adversaries, but his internal fears? Would he emerge victorious, or would he retreat into the shadows? Tomorrow, they were scheduled to meet community leaders, a pivotal step that could transform his aspirations into reality. As the shadows of the day began to lengthen, he pondered just how much he would have to confront. Would he be ready to face the reflections lurking within? Tomorrow held answers fatally entwined with self-discovery. The dawn arrived with an unsettling calm, the sun's rays filtering through Marcus's window like tentative icebreakers in a frozen sea. He sat on the edge of his bed, contemplating the conversations ahead. The air buzzed with unspoken fears and hopes mingling. Meeting the community leaders was no longer just a professional obligation. It felt like a rite of passage, an invitation to both opportunity and vulnerability. His mind raced as he prepped in front of the mirror. The image staring back was of a man unrecognizable from a year ago, awkward, unsure. Now there was a spark that flickered insistently, a profound sense of intention, yet doubts lingered at the periphery. What if they questioned his commitment? What if his devotion to inclusivity revealed a naivety they were unwilling to entertain? Prepare, don't just perform, he reminded himself softly, scrubbing his palms against his trousers as if to clear away the remnants of self-doubt. He visualized the room filled with diverse figures and voices, thoughts racing through his mind, shaping conversations and dilemmas he might face. Each scenario cemented his resolve. Facing them would not be merely about him pitching ideas, but about listening, truly listening. He was about to walk into a space where he would be both a leader and a steward. As he gathered his materials, he organized his thoughts like a seasoned conductor preparing for a symphony. The plan he had meticulously crafted, now adorned with lives and stories, would serve as both his shield and sword. It was never about merely presenting his case. It was about constructing a narrative where each participant felt empowered and each story contributed to a more significant journey. The drive to the venue unraveled in silence, that silence thick with possibility and underlying tension. Each traffic light seemed to extend time, as if the universe was mocking his eagerness. He breathed in deeply. The familiar scent of rain-soaked asphalt slid through the open window, grounding him. Rain was a reminder of growth, a precursor to life. This began as organic as his intention, crafting connections amid the uncertainty. Entering the conference room felt like stepping onto a stage. Marcus's heart pounded against his chest as his eyes scanned the group. There was an eclectic mix of community leaders, some seasoned, their expressions hardened with skepticism. Others appeared open, intrigued by the sight of a passionate newcomer. They were the gatekeepers, bearers of wisdom and experience. "Welcome," one of the leaders said, his voice firm yet inviting. Marcus took it as his cue to unfold his vision, mixing statistics with stories, every number woven into the fabric of personal experience. Yet, the deeper he went, he felt a longing for a hand to guide him through the storytelling, a semblance of approval from those whose approval mattered most. "Your approach veers toward idealism," one voice interrupted, cutting through the warmth he was attempting to cultivate. "How can you guarantee that engagement won't just be another empty promise?" Pressure mounted in the room, creating a palpable tension. In that moment, Marcus's mind flooded with a rush of thoughts back to Jasmine's pointed question. He was no longer merely a presenter. He was thrust into the arena, forced to confront that central fear. The fear that he might indeed fall short of the very change he sought to cultivate. "True impact starts with acknowledging that challenges exist," he responded, though his voice trembled. "I can't guarantee immediate success, but I can embody commitment to this journey, ensuring that every voice matters. I'm here not just to lead, but to collaborate." Their reactions were varied, some furrowed eyebrows, others nods of understanding. It dawned on him in that moment that genuine connection often ignites from vulnerability. What he had feared might seem like weakness, transformed into a point of strength. The dialogue danced between earnest inquiry and guarded skepticism, and suddenly Marcus realized that every question was an opportunity. The fear of rejection slowly morphed into a hunger for connection. Beneath the veneer of confrontation, a shared pursuit of justice and responsibility emerged, a quest they navigated together. Yet just as he began to feel momentum, an unexpected voice rose. "And what if we don't believe you?" The question hung over him like thick smoke. This was the heart of the matter, the fracture of trust. Would Marcus crumble, or could he carve out a new path for understanding? As the air thickened with anticipation, he understood this moment mattered more than the pitch itself. It was the crucible of his evolution, a test of the man he aspired to be. How would he navigate the crisis that was now staring him down? Would this confrontation redefine his journey, or would he retreat into the comfort of doubt? Tomorrow awaited with a promise of transformation, the answers lying in the balance of understanding and rebirth. The question lingered in the air, and Marcus felt its weight hanging over him like a storm cloud. He took a moment to gather his thoughts, each passing second amplifying the pressure mounting in the room. The skeptical faces around him served as a mirror of his own insecurities. Yet he understood that this was the crux of his transformative journey, facing the doubts head-on, both his and theirs. "I understand trust is earned," he began, anchoring his voice in sincerity. "What I've proposed requires collective investment, energy, time, belief. I'm here to build that trust brick by brick." He could see intrigue flicker in some eyes, while others remained clouded in doubt. The very act of speaking his truth had unveiled a deeper challenge, proving authenticity not just through words, but by laying a foundation of shared experience. As silence enveloped the room, Marcus decided to take a risk. "For transparency, I'll be as honest as I can," he declared, tapping into an unexpected reservoir of boldness. "I can't promise success, but I can promise you my commitment. Let's start with what matters to you." This invitation for dialogue opened a door. One by one, leaders began to share their visions, their concerns, and even their frustrations. They were not just voices to be managed, but stories woven into the community's fabric. An older woman with keen eyes spoke first. "And what about accountability? How will you hold yourself responsible if things go awry?" Her challenge was direct, clearing the fog that had threatened to engulf him. Marcus paused, aware that his answer must resonate with sincerity and resolve. Accountability means more than just standing before you. It means creating structures that allow for feedback and adaptability. "I'm here to learn from you, and if I fail, I will step back and analyze why. We will adapt together." He could see the senior leaders nodding, slowly peeling away their skepticism. Every conversation turned the tide, shifting tension towards collaboration. As ideas bounced around the table, a sense of organic camaraderie blossomed. It dawned on him that vulnerability did not imply weakness, rather it fortified connections. This realization transformed his fear into an electric energy, illuminating paths forward. Yet just as hope began to blossom, a sharp voice pierced through the newfound camaraderie. "And if you fail to deliver?" It came from a younger leader, wary but fiery. "What then? Are we just left holding empty promises?" The room fell silent once more. There it was again, the gut punch of reality. His instincts flared to respond, to reassure, to deflect. But he caught himself in that moment. This was about more than self-preservation. It was about confronting hard truths. He needed to articulate a response that embodied both awareness and ambition. "I recognize the risk," he responded slowly, choosing each word with care. "But transformational change is never simple or guaranteed. What I can promise is this: a relentless pursuit of inclusion and dialogue, a willingness to modify and adapt strategies based on real feedback. If I cannot meet the expectations, I'll face the consequences head-on, with you." I mean to engage with you, not just as theoretical allies, but as partners who can navigate these winds together." Their reactions varied. Some seemed to soften, while others held tightly to their skepticism. Amidst the varied responses, an unanticipated spirit of collaboration began to swirl in the air, fueled by the vulnerability Marcus chose to exhibit. Leaving the room, his heart raced, a cocktail of exhilaration and trepidation coursing through him. The dialogue had ignited something within, a desire to prove that courage and accountability could coexist. Yet he also knew that he stood on a precipice. The real challenge had just begun. Would these leaders stand by him as he set forth on a path of uncharted ambition? In the quiet of his car, he pondered what the next meeting might bring. Would he take the lessons learned today and sharpen his resolve, or would he stumble as he sought to implement this new vision? Tomorrow beckoned with uncertainty, its outcomes delicately interwoven with the trust he aimed to forge. Marcus tightened his grip on the steering wheel, ready to embrace the daunting and unpredictable journey ahead. A smile cracked his lips as he realized he would fight for this change, but equally crucial, he would fight for the belief in himself. And yet, just before he could breathe in the relief of his day, a troubling thought navigated his mind. What if the very community he sought to uplift didn't see his worth? What if his motivation remained unseen? Tomorrow could bring clarity, but it also loomed as a day of reckoning, a moment that could redefine everything he aspired to be. As the new day dawned, Marcus Williams felt an invigorating sense of purpose coursing through him. He could no longer be the sum of his fears. Instead, he was determined to champion the change he wanted to see in the technology sector, not just for his own benefit, but for everyone who had endured the same systemic barriers that he had. He arrived at the community center, where he was set to meet the leaders again, each step fueled by hope and resolution. This was not merely a continuation of a dialogue. It was the beginning of something profound, a partnership built on trust and authenticity. As he entered the room, he noticed the energy had shifted. The tension from their last conversation had been replaced by curiosity, perhaps even anticipation. "Thank you all for agreeing to meet again," Marcus said, his voice steady yet vibrant. He scanned their faces and felt a connection deepen. These were the very people whose stories he sought to uplift. "Today, I'm ready to pitch an actionable plan that isn't just theoretical. I've incorporated your feedback, and I aim to establish a tangible framework for our collaboration." With every word, he felt a sense of ownership blossom within him, connecting him directly to the shared hopes in the room. He laid out his refined strategy, presenting clear metrics of success that resonated with the community's own dreams. He introduced initiatives like educational workshops tailored to the unique needs of the community, investments specifically aimed at tech-centered programs for youth, and outreach projects to diversify tech access. As he spoke, the atmosphere shifted. Faces brightened with recognition, nods of agreement rippled through the assembly. Marcus could see the skepticism melt away as members started to visualize the possibilities. The conversation transformed into a collaborative effort, as ideas sparked and flowed among them like an unanticipated wave of enthusiasm. Accountability is key, and as part of this partnership, we will co-create pathways for success that allow us to measure progress together, he stated, inviting the leaders to actively shape the narrative. The moment felt electric. The leaders shared their ideas, wisdom, and aspirations for the collaboration they had begun to envision collectively. Each story woven into this fabric solidified Marcus's belief that he could redefine the journey for everyone involved, including himself. By the end of the meeting, Marcus felt a profound change. No longer was he just seeking validation from those in power. He had become an instrument of empowerment. He understood that this venture was about fostering relationships rather than merely achieving metrics. The respect exchanged among the leaders became an unmistakable signal that progress and trust could cultivate a fertile ground for change. As he finished his presentation, one of the senior leaders, a woman with a warm yet powerful presence, stepped forward. "Marcus, today you've proven that you not only have the vision, but also the capacity to deliver real results. We're with you. Let's forge this path side by side." Those words ignited something monumental within him. For the first time, he felt a genuine sense of belonging and recognition. The weight he had carried, the judgments and doubts, a burden he had felt since his earlier rejection by Nathan, began to lift. He had emerged not just as a businessman, but as an advocate for a deeper purpose, transforming from the shadows into a beacon of hope. Walking out of the community center, he reveled in the sunlight flooding his path. The victory he had sought didn't lie solely in financial gain or social standing. It rested firmly in the trust he was building, the community connections he was fostering, and the change he wished to inspire both as an entrepreneur and as a human being. In that profound moment of realization, Marcus saw that he was no longer chasing the approval of those above him, but forging a new narrative, one that empowered his peers and rooted his success in collective growth. He understood that his triumph was not merely financial, it was community-based and purpose-driven, encapsulating the very essence of the dreams he had fought for. The road ahead was clear and filled with momentum. Marcus was ready to embrace the challenges that lay ahead. With his head held high and newfound confidence coursing through him, he proved to himself that success had redefined itself, not just as individual achievement, but as a shared journey towards a brighter future. This was the real culmination of his transformation, the acknowledgement of his worth, not just to himself, but to every life he intended to touch in this newly forged landscape. Now was the time for action, connection, and relentless commitment to the values he championed. As he stepped forward into a world ripe with opportunity, Marcus Williams was ready to change not just his own life, but to uplift an entire community, finally taking his place among those who dared to challenge the status quo. The dawn of a new era awaited him, and he could feel it. Tomorrow would bring its own trials, but for now he stood unwavering in the embrace of progress. And now you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and comment your reactions and theories about this conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these crucial actions.